1. Yo, what's going on, YouTube? Jan Moses here with another, I believe this is our second wrestling podcast episode. And when I say our, that means I'm with my co host, which is the very much infamous Harry14321. Harry, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Great to have you
Um,
back.
yeah, it's great to be back. I think I haven't been this excited to be on the podcast. I think ever, just because, I was really excited to do these wrestling podcasts, and the fact that we're going to be able to run down the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view, very exciting. I enjoyed the pay-per-view. I know Jan enjoyed the pay-per-view, so I think this is going to be a very different, but it's going to be a fun podcast.
Yeah, just like I've said, I think on our prior episode, whenever Harry tells me to watch a wrestling show, I tend to do it because he knows what I like to watch. And once again, Harry, you hit the nail right on the head. It was a fantastic show. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're going to point out things that you didn't like. I'll probably do the same. But I think overall, the product was a really enjoyable one. We did talk very briefly at the beginning of our pre-show Discord talk, I guess, about if we want to talk about the buy-in show match, which I did not watch. So, Harry, I'll throw it to you. The Tony Nese and Mark Sterling versus Hookhausen match. Anything you want to touch on?
Uh, it's an interesting match. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you know too much about Danhausen. I don't really know too much. It was funny. I actually kind of avoided watching anything he's done prior to AEW because I wanted to be surprised during this match because I feel like he can do more. I was surprised he didn't really do that much wrestling, but I guess they're building up to it. But I think the entire team is funny. Obviously, Hook is like the serious kind of, very technical wrestler, and you got Danhausen, who is, very goofy with the curses, and everything he does is so funny. So it's an interesting pairing. But from the way that they got paired together, the storylines with Hook finally coming around and liking Danhausen, and them agreeing to do a match was very fun. I'm curious where this will go. I don't know if I see them actually winning the tag team titles or anything. But it'll be a fun ride to see what ends up happening. I don't really have too much to say about the match, but like I said, I'm excited to see what ends up happening, with this team.
Awesome. I mean, again, I didn't watch it. I have no take on it. But if that's all you have, Harry, we'll get on to,
Yeah.
I guess, the rest of the card, which was, I guess, the main card. And I believe the first match was MJF, Maxwell, Jacob Friedman versus Wardlow. The first thing I want to say before I throw it to you, Harry, is I personally enjoyed seeing Wardlow come out almost like Goldberg style.
Yeah, like Goldberg.
No
Yep,
music,
yep.
chains. It was awesome, and I kind of like the fans were kind of giving MJF a hard time. I'm pretty sure they chanted "He showed up" at the
He
very
showed up.
beginning, which was great. Harry, what were your thoughts on the first match of the main card?
So, this is going to be probably my first negative. I think the right guy won. Wardlow had to win. The only thing that really upset me was this has been literally a 3-year storyline since one of the very first shows where MJF hired Wardlow to be his kind of security guard, and he's been kind of annoying him and pissing him off for like years and years, and finally Wardlow turned on him, and now we have the match. I felt like for them to do it so quick and for Wardlow to squash him I thought it was a bit too much, but I also have a feeling that, I mean, the whole thing with MJF backstage with the whole, thing with him not showing up to a meet and greet or whatever, and him contemplating leaving the company and all this stuff going on, that it seems to be a real life problem in the company. I think that was kind of their way of burying him in a way where I think it wouldn't have been, because it was weird. I feel like you would have thought it would have been a longer match. And the fact that he got powerbombed 10 times and being stretched off, like it really felt like they were just like kind of, what's the word? Like kind of just like taking him off TV, even though he did come on the next show. I thought it was kind of weird, but like I said, the right guy definitely won. It's always fun seeing Wardlow, especially with like the no music and the crowd chanting Wardlow, like the Goldberg chants. It's interesting. I'm excited to see what's next for Wardlow because he is a star. Like that guy, I can really see him carrying the company in the next like year or so.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was kind of familiar with the whole backstory. I didn't know that it was going on for 3 years. I guess that's almost as long as AEW's been on air for. I think it's been on
Yeah,
air
it
for
has.
like
Yep,
4
yep.
years.
3 years.
Yeah. I kind of got the feeling that it was going to be a squash when I saw that it was the first match on the card. This is actually one of the matches I was looking forward to because it was one of the few matches I actually knew of going into the pay-per-view. So when I saw MJF come out immediately, I thought they were going to try and build up the hype. Is he going to show up? Is he not? And then for him to get absolutely brutalized like that was it was pretty shocking. I do feel like there were some fans that did enjoy seeing MJF get absolutely brutalized, but I'm with you, Harry. I wanted to see a better story told in the ring. I was not really a huge fan of watching him get power bombed 10 times, and I mean they basically made MJF look pretty weak.
Horrible, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and he's a good wrestler. That's why I'm like he's great on the mic, of course, but he is really talented in the ring. So I really thought this was going to be one of the best matches on the card, and I did think when it opened the show, I thought that was kind of weird, and then and there were some like funny moments. Like I loved MJF, like you said, coming out doing like the little airplane gimmick because people thought he was going to fly, take a flight and not attend the show. So I thought that was great. But yeah, I agree. I feel like the entire thing it could have been a little bit longer for my taste.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's for me the main point is just because MJF is very good on the mic doesn't mean that he's just some jobber, that he's just some like manager. He's an actual good wrestler. He's a good athlete, and to see him used like that, I mean, regardless of what the backstage politics are with his contract situation, I just don't think that's the way the match should have gone. Again, like you said, the result is what it should have been. It's the payoff that you wanted results wise, but I think in terms of what happened in the ring, I think we could have had a better product in that match. So, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it like a B, I guess. What about you, Harry?
Uh, yeah, like I guess a B minus. Like I said, the right guy won. I also think in general, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like Wardlow also isn't at the point yet because he's pretty young. I don't think he can do a long match. I think that also had to do with it. I think give him like a year, he'll be more comfortable doing a long match, especially with someone like MJF, where Wardlow would probably have to carry a lot of the match, just because he's big and everything. But yeah, I would give it a B minus. And it feels good that this storyline ended after so many years, and now Wardlow can do his own thing. I'm curious where he'll end up going next.
Yeah, me too. Believe the following match after the MJF Wardlow match was a tag team match between the Hardys and the Young Bucks, and I for some reason forgot that the Hardys were on AEW, so that was pretty cool. And I also really like that, like for certain wrestlers like CM Punk, who we'll talk about later, and the Hardys, they kept their theme songs from WWE because while
Yeah,
for some wrestlers it is good to have that change of music, like Adam Cole, I loved his music in NXT, but his music in AEW really suits him more. I feel like, especially for his whole like solo run.
I
But it's
agree.
great. It's great to have like the Jeff Hardy music, when he's coming out. My quick thoughts that I want to throw out for this match before I pass it on over to you. I mean, first of all, the Young Bucks are incredible, and I love the Hardys. For me, it was kind of like a dream match in a way, where it's kind of like not necessarily old versus new because the Young Bucks have been out there for a little while. But like just seeing some of those spots, like the Young Bucks hitting their own Twist of Fate Swanton Bomb combo, that was pretty cool. Um, yeah, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the match personally. I feel like it could have been a little more exciting. I feel like the feud is going to continue personally, just based off how the match kind of ended. But with that said, I'm gonna pass it on over to you, Harry. What are your thoughts on the Hardys versus the Young Bucks?
Okay, I swear I'm not going to be like super negative throughout the entire video, but I will say I wasn't really a fan. I wasn't really a fan. I was going to speak about this earlier, but I think one of the biggest negatives for me about the entire show was it was long, and I think judging by how long it took you to finish it, like it was a hard pay-per-view to watch in one sitting. But
Yeah.
it's also because like they explained, so apparently this it took place during Game 7 of the Heat and the Celtics, and apparently Tony Khan wanted he wanted the main event of Punk and Adam Page to take place after Game 7, so he purposely stacked up the cards and gave more matches than a normal pay-per-view just to make it that way. So the Young
Wow.
Bucks and Hardy Boys, like you said, is a dream match. There was barely any storylines in it, which I feel like it should have had a longer feud, and it should have like had more of a storyline going into the pay-per-view, which they really need to do, that big of a thing, which I do agree. I don't think it's over. which I'm guessing because the Hardy Boys won. I felt like that was also kind of weird, considering you would think like the young talent, like the Young Bucks, would win a match like that. But on more positive, like you'll never see a bad Young Bucks pay-per-view match. They'll always kill it. They're like you said, incredible. For me, it's kind of sad though watching the Hardy Boys because like especially Jeff Hardy because I feel like it's hard for him to even move. Like I feel
Yeah.
like even the slightest of movements, like you can see he's in pain. Like I think he was even pulled from the Dynamite after because I think he's injured. But so I felt like a lot of it, the Young Bucks kind of had to carry the match. But like you said, it's one of the things where like if the Hardys are in AEW, got to do that dream match with them and the Young Bucks. I'm hoping this continues and they'll actually have more of like I guess an arc to it. But overall, like you said, it was a good match. You'll never see a bad Young Bucks match.
Yeah, I guess my parting words on that match is for me, any match where the Hardys leave uninjured or alive for me is a win. So to
Yeah,
hear that
yeah.
Hardy or Jeff Hardy's hurt is unfortunate, but honestly, at this point, it's to be expected, especially with the number of spots they had in that match. This next match, I don't really remember all that much of. I believe it was the TBS title match between, I think it's Jade Cargill or Cargill versus Anna Jay. I don't really remember a lot from this match. It kind of felt like a filler match from what I remember. And there were some random people I think that came in at the end of this match that I didn't really know. I think that was this match. I'm just going to pass to you, Harry, because I feel like I really don't have as good of a recollection of this match as hopefully you have. So, what were your thoughts?
I really don't have many thoughts. I will say the other women's matches, I'll be able to share a lot. This one, I'm not really into Jade, to be honest. Her matches aren't that like much fun for me. I didn't really like the match personally, but like I said, I'm not really that big of a fan of the people in the ring, so I don't really have a lot to say. But like I said, I'll have a lot more to say about the Ruby Soho and Britt match, and Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa match. So sorry.
Yeah, if anything, that was a match where I was a little more intrigued because I
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
of Thunder Rosa. I didn't watch. I guess she beat
Britt
what's her
Baker.
face? Yeah, Britt Baker. I guess for the title. I figured it was gonna happen, but I guess I missed the match. But I was kind of looking forward to her match. Speaking of the match that I was looking forward to because I didn't even know that either of these factions were a thing. House of Black versus
Ooh,
Death Triangle. I'm a huge Aleister Black fan from his days back at in NXT. The minute he got called up to the main roster and he came up to Raw and he didn't do anything, I was just waiting for him to leave and go to AEW because I was so frustrated. Him and Ricochet. I'm glad at least one of them has broken free from the shackles of WWE. And then not House of Black, Death Triangle. I think is what it was Phoenix. I forgot the name of the other guy. Oh my god, I'm
Pentagon.
struggling. Pentagon, and then
Pack.
Pac, who does the Red Arrow. Yeah, that was a pretty
Yeah.
cool click. I didn't know if that was like a recently formed faction or what.
No, it's been going on for a long time.
I mean, it was for me. This was a really entertaining match. From what I do remember, I feel like the best way that I could describe it was pure insanity. Just I remember I couldn't I was trying to grind 2K while I was watching it, and this is one of the few matches on the card where I struggled to actually focus on what I was doing in 2K because I felt like every second I turned away, something else crazy happened. In this match. So I'm gonna throw it over to you, Harry. What were your thoughts on Death Triangle versus House of Black?
This match was awesome. It's funny. I remember looking at the card, and while people were saying like, "Oh, the Punk match will be the best, the MJF match will be the best," whatever, I thought from the beginning, if this match is given time to do their thing, they're given like even 20 minutes or whatever, this will be the best match. And this might have been my favorite match. Like I love, like you said, everyone in the ring. Pac is awesome. The stuff that Phoenix can do is out of this world. Penta's great, and then I love Aleister Black. I hope this guy really becomes the AEW champion at some point in his career because he is great. He's a fantastic wrestler. His persona is really cool. And then Buddy Matthews is really great. I was happy when he got signed because he's awesome. He's another amazing performer. And I don't really know Brody too well, but the fact that what Brody can do for his size is insane. He is also great. Like this was such a great match. Like you said, you couldn't really focus on anything else. It was like high spot after high spot. Like there was no break. It was pure chaos, like you said. I thought it was great. I'm really glad that why am I the House of Black won, because I think I'm more of a fan of them, to be honest. Like you can't not like that team. They're just so cool. And it was interesting because the whole thing, I why am I forgetting her name? But the girl who ended up, I don't know if you remember, the girl who ended
Oh,
up
Julia Hart.
yes, there we go. This has been going on for like months. Like this whole storyline was like a long time ago. I think it was Malachi who like sprayed the thing into Julia Hart, and for weeks and weeks, Julia, and she's with the tag team. I don't know why I'm blanking on them. They it'll come to me, but like weeks and weeks, you'll notice like the thing on her face, which was from the getting the thing sprayed at her or whatever. It was growing and growing weekly, and she would look more and more like deranged and like psychotic every week. So for it to finally have this ending of her joining the team and her helping them win, I thought that was great. It really was. I couldn't say any negative thing about this match. It really was such a fun. It was a fun match.
Yeah, I think for me this was the first match where I really did buy into the pay-per-view because I mean the other matches were fine, like we had mentioned, but this had a lot of athletes that I really enjoy watching, and I mean again, huge fan of Aleister Black, and I'm with you. I would love to see him in the main event scene. I think that's where
Oh
he
yeah,
should be
definitely.
eventually. I mean he was so much fun to watch back in NXT, and I'm hopeful that with some time he can eventually get a good singles push. Um, the following match was, I mean, for me, it was really really cool because I had no idea that AEW was associated with the Owen Hart Foundation on any level, and for them to have two matches, being, I guess, in a way sponsored by the
Yeah,
Owen Hart
they had an
Foundation.
entire tournament for the men's and the women's to get the Owen Hart trophy.
Yeah, and it was awesome. I will say one thing really randomly, like a random note that I thought of. I really appreciate that Tony Khan doesn't really ever come out, and there are no storylines that involve him directly where he makes his face a presence on the show. So that when he does come out, it actually means more. Like when he's walking the late Owen Hart's wife out, to present the trophies to the winners, who we'll be talking about shortly. It makes it more and more meaningful, which I
No,
appreciate.
yeah, and I'll quickly add, like you're 100% right. Like, but even from the beginning, he said like he didn't want to be a GM, like an on-screen persona. He didn't want to take time away from the wrestling, which I thought was great. And I think the only three times he's come out was this time with Martha Hart. The second time was when Brody Lee passed away, and he came out to announce it and bring out Brody Lee's son and all that. And then the third time was to come out to say that he bought Ring of Honor. So he's only come out on three times in this entire show in 3 years. So you're right. When you do see him, it's a big deal, and you're really excited to have him there. But before we even get into the match, I thought the entire thing was great. The fact that they're doing this for Owen Hart, like the one point that they made, that Tony Khan has made in interviews and everything, which I think is so powerful, is like in WWE the only way they really talk about Owen is to talk about his death, and he had such a wonderful and amazing career. So for him to only be remembered by his last seconds on the planet is really just it's sad. So I like that the whole AEW thing, they've really promoted his matches and how like just showing what a great wrestler he was and how much of an honor it is to be memorized by him. So I think how they've done this entire tournament for both men and women has just been amazing.
Yeah, I could not have said it any better myself. I mean, and again, I wasn't following the tournament from the beginning, but to see the culmination of it for both the men's and women's side was really a treat. And it started with the men's final between Samoa Joe and Adam Cole, who, as Harry knows, I'm a huge Adam Cole fan.
You can't not be.
Yeah, I know, I know. I'm glad that. I mean, it's not that you didn't see the light. I just think you weren't as familiar with him because you didn't really watch as much NXT as I used to. And so when he came that night, along with Daniel or Brian Danielson, I should say, sorry, to AEW, I was marking out, and I don't even watch wrestling like that anymore. But I was just so happy to see two of the hardest workers in the industry who have been doing it for so long get to go to a place where it's almost like for me, they get the creative freedom I think they want at a much greater level than they'll get in WWE. So, and now, I mean, I'll be talking to you, Harry, randomly, in our Twitter DMs, and nowadays you're telling me how much you love Adam Cole. So for me, it's great to see, someone else um, who's buying in. I'm very happy that Adam Cole won this match. I just want to put that out there. It wasn't a very entertaining match, in my opinion.
Mm.
I felt like it was fine. And I guess it kind of, for me, I just didn't think that Samoa Joe had a chance of winning this match personally. I always felt like it was going to be Adam Cole, and maybe that kind of took away from it for me. Um, but I guess that's really all I have to say. Harry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. First off, yeah, I did not realize because I was so stubborn about watching AEW, I wouldn't watch any NXT. So when you would tell me about how awesome like Kyle O'Reilly was and Adam Cole was and all these people, I would be like, yeah, I'm sure they're great. But I never really took the time to watch. And now I'm watching old NXT stuff. Like the other day, I randomly sat down to watch Adam Cole against Johnny Gargano. I think it was like the Takeover event where it was a 2 out of 3 falls match where it was like a different stipulation per each fall or whatever. But that was awesome. Every Adam Cole match is great. It sucked because as much as I love Samoa Joe and I think he's incredible, everything he does is so amazing. And he looks the part. Like he looks like you wouldn't want to fight him in a match. So I like the intimidation also. But it was Samoa Joe against Kyle O'Reilly, and then the winner would fight Adam Cole. So I was so excited that we would get to see a Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole match because I think that would be a better match. But it ended up being Samoa Joe, and I think although the match wasn't amazing, I think also because of their size difference and the way they fight, I think I have a feeling that for Samoa Joe and Adam Cole, if there was a storyline and they had a feud and it made sense for like a championship or whatever, I think that would be great. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like a storyline could have carried the match in a way where even Adam Cole and Samoa Joe would have been great, but because it was only for a tournament without a title and there wasn't really any heat in this match, it really didn't come out that great. But I am glad Adam Cole won. I'm glad that remind me who helped him win. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. It's
Who helped him? Was it Bobby Fish?
There we go. I'm glad that Bobby Fish got to play a part because he didn't have a match obviously, so I'm glad he got to play a part. And I'm really glad Adam Cole won. I can't say enough great things about him. And he seems like the nicest guy in real life. Like I'll listen to him on interviews. He really does seem like such a nice guy who loves wrestling. And the fact that like in his free time, he has a Twitch account where he'll stream video games. Like he seems like such a cool guy. So like I said, I'm glad he won. I found it funny. Like we'll talk about it later, but I found it so funny that it's like as you have Britt and Adam Cole getting these awards and you have Martha like in tears and it's such a nice thing and they're all clapping. And it's like you have two heels winning these awards technically in Adam Cole and Britt, but because they're so beloved by fans, it's like they seem like the baby faces because like you can't hate them, any of them.
No, I'm totally with you. I'm actually really glad that you did mention who won the next match because I mean, it was a fine match. I was actually a little disappointed with the Ruby Soho and Britt Baker match. I mean, it was so obvious when Adam Cole won, and that was already obvious to me that Britt was gonna win. My favorite part of that entire match were their entrances. Ruby Soho's entrance was fantastic. Rancid playing out her theme was great. The whole crowd was really, really feeling it. I liked Ruby Soho back when she was in WWE. I thought that she was fine with her her faction. I forgot what the name of their faction was with those three. It was like her, Liv Morgan, and then that very, very tall, bulky woman that I forgot her name. But she really wasn't, doing anything with that gig. And to see her now having, a match against Britt Baker, even though she lost, it's a good look for her. And I feel like her career is elevated so much more so in AEW than in WWE. And she's been in, AEW for less than a year now? I don't even know how long she's been here for. So... but yeah, I agree with everything you said about the post match for both Adam Cole and Britt Baker. Really, really nice event, and I'm assuming this is going to be the first annual, and we're going to get these every single year, which is awesome. I think in terms of being the first one, I'm more comfortable with, even though the matches weren't great in my opinion, for whatever the reasons may be. I think having Britt Baker and Adam Cole as the first two wrestlers whose names will be etched in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, history, the history books, for me is great because they're going to be two of the biggest faces that AEW has to offer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also, to quickly add on to the Brit, I don't know if you wanted to move on, but I will
No, go
say
ahead.
one thing I find two things funny about the Brit and Adam Cole thing. I find one, I think it's so great that like we all know they're dating in real life, and they'll admit it. They'll kiss on screen or whatever. I like that it's not shoved into our faces. Like I remember when Seth Rollins and Becky, was found out that they were dating. They shoved it in our faces every week, and we get it. And it's even funny that like the fact that like Sammy Guevara, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the fact that him and his girlfriend Ty Conti were both faces, and they were put together, and the crowd loved them separately, but when they were put together, the crowd hated them. But it's funny that Adam Cole and Britt, who are the heels, that they're put together, and the crowd loves that relationship a lot. But I'll also say, if you want to add anything, but I'll also say about the Britt and Ruby Soho match. I actually liked the match. I think it was cool to have a match like Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa where that will be like the quote unquote wrestling match. That'll be more of a technical style, where this is more of like the star match. It's like I would compare it to, and I'm not calling any of them bad wrestlers or bad performers, but I would compare it to like a Rock and Stone Cold, where it's like they weren't these amazing technical wrestlers, but even a punch will get the crowd cheering because they were beloved by the fans, and they were like the real stars of the company. When you have Ruby Soho coming out like in her entrance, like you can tell she's a star. Britt Baker is obviously a star, so it didn't have to be an amazing match because anything they did, they were going to be loved by the fans. And I thought it was cool that like even though Britt Baker's a heel, she gets cheered the most out of anyone she'll face. So I thought it was really refreshing to have someone like Ruby Soho, who the crowd also loves, and there were times where they were booing Britt in favor of liking Ruby Soho. Besides that, I agree. By the time Cole won, you kind of knew Britt was winning, so I thought that I'm glad that, like you said, that Cole and Britt were able to win. And other than that, I do agree. It's like even though Ruby lost, it didn't look bad on her part. Her just being with Britt Baker and being in a close match made her look good, and I'm really hoping that Ruby will win the title soon because I am a Ruby fan. There's something about the way she carries herself. It's kind of like Adam Cole, where it's like they might be the smallest or one of the smallest people out there in a fight, but they have so much confidence and so much character where they still feel larger than life.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, when you say it like that, I do agree. There was like a big fight feel given the names of it and what was on the line
Yep.
because the foundation that is behind this whole tournament is a really really big deal. So I'm with you. And you did touch on Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti. I believe they were in the following match, which had Sammy Guevara, Frankie Kazarian, and Tay Conti going up against Men of the Year and Paige Van Zant. It's funny, you mentioned maybe like 10, 15 minutes ago how it took me a while to go through this whole, the whole event and get back to you being like, hey, I'm finally ready to do a podcast with you now. And I will say, I think this was one of the matches where, while there were some funny moments, like a couple of clips that I sent you from this match, I just felt like, while the match itself wasn't like super long, this is one of the matches where I felt like they could have put it on another card. Like, it just felt
Yep.
like kind of out of place, and I don't even watch AEW like that. It just, to me, there are filler matches, and then there was this, where it's just like, I don't even know why this is here. Like this, it genuinely
Right.
felt like this was meant to be like one long commercial break. I genuinely didn't enjoy
Yeah.
this match.
And it's funny you say that because, like I said before, this was actually a match that was made on Friday for the pay-per-view, because to save time for the main event, so it's after the NBA game, which, like, I think the reason why although I liked a lot of the matches, and I think more of the matches I liked a lot are coming up, so I'm not very negative on this, but I think, most pay-per-views, they don't have those filler matches. I think that's what makes the AEW pay-per-views so good, is because every match means something and it has such variety in the card. It wasn't like this was a pay-per-view where there were a bunch of filler matches. Some were great, like for instance, like the Kyle O'Reilly Derby. I thought that was a great match, but it didn't have any story. They kind of threw that out of nowhere. That it would have been cool if it had more of a build-up. So I didn't care for this match. I thought it was very in your face, like the Sammy stuff. It's like, we get it. You don't need to tell us every second that you're in love with Ty Conti. Like, we're not idiots. We can pick up on things. I didn't like that. The entire, like, I just wasn't into the storyline. And Sammy's great. I love Sammy. I think all of them are great in the ring. Like Frankie's great. Scorpio Sky's great. Ethan Page. But I thought the entire, like, gimmick of the match, where it was like the whole, like, they're all kind of heels besides Frankie, and Sammy's being a shitty partner and all that stuff. I thought it was a bit too much. And like you said, if there was a filler match on the card where you needed a break from wrestling, you wanted to eat food or use the restroom or something, it would have been this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. The next match, again, as you mentioned, was the Darby Allin and Kyle O'Reilly match. I just want to say right off the bat, like, again, I wasn't familiar with what the story was. If any, you were saying that it was just added on to the card.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
I enjoyed it because, for me, it was a really hard-hitting fight, and I'm a huge Kyle O'Reilly fan. I mean, I think after Adam Cole and Aleister Black, for me, coming in third is Kyle O'Reilly, as in terms of, like, NXT transplants into AEW. And for him to get a clean victory over Darby Allin, for me, is a big deal, because that to me means that creative believes in Kyle O'Reilly enough to give him a clean win over a wrestler that I know they do prioritize in Darby Allin. And I know they had the whole storyline. I think he was, like, trying to, like, win in Sting's honor. I don't know what happened to Sting. When they first said that, Harry, I thought he died, and I immediately paused the pay-per-view and I googled to see if Sting died, and I saw on his Wikipedia
because they said in honor of Sting, and that's what you thought.
And I was like, that's awful. How are you gonna just say that? And then I looked, thank God he's still alive. And then I think they all said later that he's gonna maybe come back to the show in a couple of weeks.
I think he did have some, like, medical problem, but I didn't even think of that, because I know what's going on in AEW, but, like, I from an outsider who doesn't watch, like, the weekly shows or whatever, I can see where that would be very, like, off-putting, in his honor.
Yeah, like, the last clip I saw of Sting in AEW was, like, from a few weeks ago. He, like, jumped, like, it was like a backstage. Jumped through, like, 2 tables. It was like a good 10 to 20 feet drop, and I was like, he's gonna kill himself. And then when they said in his honor, I was like, there's no way that he died. Thankfully he did not die. But regardless, my closing thought before I pass it over to you, again, really good match. I thought it was a solid match, nothing amazing, but for me the result was good enough. Kyle O'Reilly beating a really good wrestler in Darby Allin clean is a huge win for all Kyle O'Reilly fans. Harry, your thoughts?
All right, so even though I was upset that they put a filler match in the last one out of nowhere, it's different. When you put Kyle O'Reilly, and I will say, I love Kyle O'Reilly. I think he is so awesome. I might even like him as much as I like Adam Cole, because the way, I said, the way Kyle O'Reilly also carries himself, his entrance, he's very, like, he has a goofiness to him, but it's also a very, like, seriousness, like the way he fights. I'll say he wrestles like no one I've ever seen. It's like he's technical, he's hard hitting, the things he does. And this is a random thing, but there was one thing in particular that Dean Ambrose back in WWE used to do, which I loved, and I was kind of sad that he didn't do it, he stopped doing it in AEW. Was you would hit him, and then he would do a weird thing where he would kind of bounce off the ropes, where it looked like he was going to fall off out of the ring, but he would come back in for the lariat. I love that Kyle O'Reilly does it. I don't know if he did it in NXT or he just started in AEW, but there's something about him doing that I love. And like you said, like, Darby's a small guy, but he is one of the AEW's most protected guys in the company. Like, he was one of their first TNT champions. So beating him clean, that's a big deal. And I'm so glad. As much as I love Darby, and he also has another interesting, I don't think there's anyone like Darby who is willing to just literally kill himself in the ring. Like, I think Darby has even said, like, in interviews, like, he doesn't expect to, like, wrestle until he's 40. Like, he's gonna keep doing what he can until he can't. And, like, how fast he moves, he's so quick in the ring, and the move he'll do when he just, like, he'll go through the ropes like a cannonball. Like, you can play that match over and over again, it'll be still fun to watch. So I'm glad that Kyle O'Reilly won. As much as I love Darby, it was a great match, and like you said, I'm hoping they really are throwing the green light at Kyle O'Reilly, because he is another guy who could be champion. He could be TNT champion. Anything he does is great. I was even hoping that him and Bobby Fish were going to win the titles. I think it was last pay-per-view, but I'm hoping that they have plans for Kyle O'Reilly in the future, which I think they do. I wouldn't bet against it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think they have to. Again, to get a clean win like that, they'd be foolish to not capitalize.
And Darby's doing it in Sting's honor, and the fact that he took an L, that if you think about it, that's even more like powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, shout out to Sting. Glad you're alive. Going.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was genuinely pretty scared. I'm not gonna lie. The next match was the women's title match between Serena Deeb and the reigning women's champ Thunder Rosa. I felt like it was a pretty good match. It was, to me, it felt like a good match between like someone who was clearly more of a fighter versus someone who's more of like a technical wrestler. And those styles don't always mesh well together, but I thought that it did. My issue with this match has nothing to do with the match itself. Like, in a vacuum, it was a good match, but you need to start factoring in the length of the show here. And it's like, again, one of those matches where it's like, I had to take a break and come back the next day because I think the match was like almost 20 minutes. I think it was like more than 15. And it was fine, but again, I think given the length of the card, now that I know what Tony Khan was trying to do, which was outpace not outpace, but leave time for the main event to go on after Game 7 of Heat Celtics.
But you know what? And I'll also quickly say, I'd be really interested to see if that strategy worked. I'm sure there's got to be a statistic where you can find out. But do you really see a case where someone watches an entire NBA game and they go, you know what? I think it would be a great idea to pay full price for a pay-per-view where I can only see the main event. And also, this is kind of random, but there was a comment that Jim Cornette made in his video, and he's very critical of AEW, but he made a comment that I found funny. If you notice, throughout the entire pay-per-view, Tony Schiavone on commentary kept saying, "Oh, it's not too late to buy the pay-per-view." Who is he talking to? The people who are watching bought the pay-per-view. What impact does that do? But
yeah.
I forgot where we were, but I thought I just wanted to bring that up. I thought the match was
interesting. It is very interesting.
Yeah, I thought the match was good. I mean, I would say great. It's funny because, as Jan can attest, I'm not always the biggest fan of women's wrestling, and I'm not putting down it. There's a lot of people I do like obviously in WWE, like the Beckys and the Charlottes and all of them, and Sasha. I think they're great. I also think in AEW, their women division, in terms of wrestling, isn't that insane. But this was, I think, the first time. And I'm sure you've seen this more, because I know, especially in NXT, the women division, back when they had the Sashas and all of them were great. But I think this was the first time I've ever heard a crowd chant, "This is wrestling," in a women's match, and they'll normally do that for the men's. And I thought that was, amazing to watch. It really was a great technical match. As much as I'm not the biggest women's wrestling fan, I would watch a match like that any day because it was technical. There was a lot that went into it, and I think. No one thought Serena was really going to win. Thunder just, beat Britt. So I think it was kind of a predictable match, but I'm glad that happened. I thought it was a good match. Like you said, it's kind of a weird thing where it's like, I probably would have preferred a shorter match, but at the same time, it's like you can't give your men's champions such a long fight and then not give as much to your women. So it's kind of like you have to do it. But I see your point. It gets to a point where there's some matches where, I mean, listen, in my opinion, I probably would have preferred a longer Kyle O'Reilly and Darby match if you're going to take some time off of this match. So it's kind of hit or miss, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, again, I really did enjoy the match. I just think the whole pay-per-view was kind of weighing on
a lot. It was a lot, for sure.
The next match, man, I don't even know how to even talk about this match. The Jericho Appreciation Society versus Blackpool Combat Club, Santana Ortiz, Eddie Kingston.
Can I open up?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry. I got excited.
No,
Continue
please, don't be sorry.
Finishing.
Go for it.
So I think if there was ever a time for this match, it would have been now. Because like you said, I don't think it wasn't just you. You can tell the crowd was getting dead during this point. It's already been so many matches, and I think they were tired. And I think the idea to keep the Jon Moxley's Wild Thing entrance music throughout the first, I would say, third of the match was a brilliant idea. Because I can't even explain this match. It like you said the 6-man tag was chaos. This was the definition of chaos. And I'm not really the biggest fan of these crazy, unsanctioned matches because I like to keep it in the ring. But this match was awesome. I mean, I wish I can't even really point out spots because it was so like one thing after another. It'd be like you'd see someone go through a table and then it'd be like, I don't know, like someone getting hit by chairs and they were all so bloody by the end. And I wish I could remember more spots, but I just remember at the end when Eddie Kingston was walking down the ramp, blood all over his body with the what's it called, the gasoline. He looked like a zombie. Like he looked his acting I don't know if it was acting or he was so out of it from the amount of blood. And listen, it's like that the blood might have been from using a razor, but that's real blood. That is real blood that's coming out of him. So I think for all I know, maybe he was just out of it, just barely walking to the ring to do this. But I thought the ending was great with because him and Brian, if you remember, they had a pay-per-view match not too long ago, and the whole point was they couldn't get along. So I thought it was great, him just carelessly pouring the gasoline on Bryan Danielson, him being so out of it, and them fighting, and then pushing Moxley into the the freaking the what's it called, the barbed wire table.
Yep.
Like that was probably the most hectic match I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of these matches, but like it was amazing, and it was really needed at that point because I think after that the crowd was hyped enough to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like a 20-plus minute spot fest to me. And it was
Yeah.
very entertaining. Like it's kind of like you said. Sometimes when you're in this awkward portion of your card where you're like really trying to push for a long show and you can feel the crowd's energies waning, you need a match like this. And to your point, I was actually going to make that exact same comment. Them playing Moxley's theme song for a good number of minutes to start the match, I think was actually to the benefit of the crowd because it helped kind of keep them going, which I really appreciated. I didn't fully understand why Jericho's team won. I just felt like not having any idea of the backstory that Bryan's team would win, but
If you thought this was crazy, Jen, they're building towards their Blood and Guts pay-per-view, which I assume will be even bloodier and even guttier than this pay-per-view. So it's leading up to something. And by the way, I gotta mention, I don't know if you know so much about the Jericho Appreciation Society, his new group. It's amazing because you have someone like Jericho who he can be a heel and the people are going to love him. They're still going to be chanting his music, singing his music. They love him. So you know what they do to get people to boo him? They take the one thing that they know that AEW hates, and that's WWE. Their entire group, they're called the Sports Entertainers, and their entire gimmick is that sports entertainers will always win against professional wrestlers like Moxley and Bryan Danielson. It is so great. The people hate it. People boo. They'll do things like they'll mock WWE. They'll do like contract signings and they'll do all like the phony WWE stuff. It's awesome.
That's amazing. See, I did not know that. Okay, well then that changes my stance on it. I mean, I enjoyed the match. It was a pretty good match. The next one, man, I just want to say before I even talk about this next match, I keep forgetting that Keith Lee is in AEW, and then whenever I see him, I just get really excited because I love me some Keith Lee. But the tag team titles on the line. I think it was a three-way tag. Yeah, it was three-way tag. Jurassic Express versus Team Taz versus Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. It felt like a pretty solid match from what I do remember. I don't really have a lot that I can really recall because the following match is the main event, and I just feel like, that's all I can really think about, I guess. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, there was not a point in this match where I wasn't really focusing, compared to other tag team matches on the card, like Sammy Guevara's tag team match. What were your thoughts on this three-way tag team match for the titles?
I thought it was great. So I love the match. I didn't like the outcome. I love Keith Lee. The stuff that he can do with his size is just it's not right. I don't know how he can pull the freaking the move. I don't know what it's called. The move where he flips over the ropes, like a suicide dive kind of. I don't know how he can do that. Amazing. I think Swerve is great and so entertaining. Ricky Hobbs is great. I think I just combined their names. Ricky Stark. Hobbs is also great. Jungle Boy is great. but for me, the line ends there because I'm not a Luchasaurus fan. Like he can do some cool things, but it is the same thing every single match. It's always the same kick, the same like thing where he does the kip up. It's literally like this. It's like a play. It's always like the same moveset. So I don't really like them as a tag team. I'm glad they won. I mean, I'm glad they won the titles for the purpose of building up Jungle Boy because I think he's going to be a star in the near future. But I would have so much have rathered them to. I think they needed to lose here. They've had the titles for a while. I think Keith Lee and Swerve are such a cool tag team. I don't know how Tony Khan is able to put such great teams together where you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think it makes sense. Swerve and Kyle and Swerve and Keith Lee, they're such a cool team. So I think they're great. I think Hobbs is also amazing. He looks the part. He's great in the ring. I think it would have been great for him to win. So I'm kind of just waiting for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus to lose at some point. But overall, the match was very fun, very high pace. You know, it was a fun match.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, every card that I've watched, I feel like every AEW show I've watched, I should say, I feel like it's Jurassic Express holding on to the tag team titles. So
and yet they're beating people who should be winning. Like I think last pay-per-view when it was them against Young Bucks and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, I would have loved for Kyle O'Reilly to Bobby Fish to win. They would have benefited from that. Young Bucks, I mean, they've already been the champions, but it's like they keep beating teams where it's like there's only so many teams and you're doing all these triple threats where now it's like you're just beating more teams that probably should be winning the titles. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I would also like to see Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly win the titles, but I would really like to see it happen where if Adam Cole is the one who winning the main title, and then you have Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly win the tag titles, and you kind of have like a callback to what they did in NXT when you had the Undisputed Era all decked out in gold. I would like to see that personally, but I just want to see CM Punk come back from his injury, which we will touch on because unless you have anything else to share on this tag team match, I'm gonna segue over to the main event, the AEW World Title match, Punk versus Hangman Page. I'm gonna let you start here, Harry. This is the main event. And two huge names, obviously, with Hangman Page, who's had the title for you'd know how long, I don't know, and then Punk being I mean, would you say before you lead off with your take on this match, would you say CM Punk is the biggest signing in AEW history?
Oh yeah, not a doubt.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. With that said, Perry, the floor is yours. Your thoughts on the main event?
Okay, so this match was interesting because in the beginning it was very bittersweet. Also, I will say, as much as Punk is a star, this match was unpredictable. Like with you have Hangman, who's being pushed as like a great champion, and versus Punk, babyface versus babyface. Like I was not 100% certain Punk was going to win. I had a good feeling, but I felt like if Hangman won this one, Punk would probably win the next one. So I didn't know, but it was bittersweet for me because I've followed Hangman's journey from the beginning of AEW. He's had such an incredible story arc from, having anxiety and becoming an alcoholic and teaming with Omega, and the whole story, the full like 2-year story with Omega was, just incredible. So, once I kind of figured it was kind of ending, I did get sad, but, and we can talk about the match, but, there was a moment when Punk won, and before he even got the belt, he started crying and tears were coming down his face, and that was such a powerful moment for me because it's like here's a guy who literally he loved wrestling and when he left WWE he hated it. There was nothing he hated more. He left on such bitter terms and he went 7 or 8 years without wrestling, and he to go from someone like I remember Bryan Danielson saying that it broke his heart when he heard Punk say that he hated wrestling because it's something that Punk was so good at and the crowd loved him, and for him to come this far and get signed by AEW, which no one thought he would ever be in a wrestling ring again. And for him to win the title after all of this, it was such an amazing moment to see how emotional he got because he's really had such an incredible story, an incredible journey, and it's so great to have him wrestling and to be the champion. I thought the match was great. It was an interesting match because normally when you have a babyface versus babyface match, you don't hear a lot of booing because everyone is so loved. But the interesting thing about this match was Punk has such a huge following of fans who adore him, but Hangman also has such a great following of people who love Hangman, especially after seeing him and everything he's been through from day one of AEW. So when there'd be moments where Punk was doing well, and you couldn't even hear the cheers because the people who love Hangman would be booing Punk, and it was so loud. But when Hangman was doing well, it was the opposite. You want to hear cheers, you'd be hearing the Punk fans booing Hangman. So it really felt like everyone was hated in that match, but it was really everyone is so loved that they had their own fans that would boo the other person. So I'm glad that Punk won. We'll get into his injury later, but it really was a great moment, and I was I just remember being so excited for what's next. It feels like a different era in AEW. Like, I remember back in 2012 loving when Punk was champion. I think he went for like 400 days or something like that. Like, he's a fun champion, so I'm excited once he gets back from his injury to see what he ends up doing. But I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed a lot of the points that I was gonna touch on. There were a couple points in the match where I was a little worried. So I wasn't sure if it was supposed to go down like this, or if Punk just kept messing up the move. I think it's called the buckshot lariat. He
messed it up
falling.
for real.
I think it was like twice. Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No. I mean, you can chime in. I was gonna say he was like grabbing his knee after the second one, and I feel like that was just his way of like selling that he just couldn't do it because of a knee injury. But it genuinely to me looked like he was trying to do the move and he just couldn't.
He did, and I think he even said at the end, like, he said, like, they asked him in an interview, and he said, like, that's something he'll always kind of eat himself up for. He was really upset, and he took it to heart that he couldn't hit the move, because this entire feud they've been kind of building on each other stealing one another's finishing moves. So, but I think he really was hurt, because I think he mentioned the following Rampage that he did break something. I don't know if he broke his foot. I don't think he broke his foot, but I think he broke something, maybe a tendon or something, but it's something in the foot. I think he really was hurt. But keep going, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, all I really wanted to say, besides that is, you get the controversial ending, right, with the ref being knocked out, and then you have Hangman Page debating, should I use the title, should I not use the title, and then he ends up, deliberating, and that deliberation ends up costing him, where it leads to Punk winning. The one thought that I will have, obviously, I love seeing CM Punk with the title. Like you said, it's the culmination of these years of him hating wrestling because of what happened at the end of his time with WWE, and then, going into all these different avenues. We saw him, I think he was like doing MMA or whatever, and that didn't work out all that well for him. And to see him come back and, be welcomed back, with open arms, and to see him back on the mountaintop, it's great. And I'm really eager to see who he's going to feud with. And for Hangman, Page, for me, I just felt like they got every drop out of that lemon with Page as champ. And I just feel like there are so many other big stars that I want to see inserted into the title picture, and now I get to see them maybe feud with Punk. For me, for you too, and you can list any name you want. And we were just talking about Adam Cole before. Adam Cole versus CM Punk is like one of my biggest dream matches ever.
I'll do you one better. Punk. Bryan Danielson versus CM Punk for the title.
Absolutely. You're gonna want guys that are gonna be, in my opinion, these not necessarily high flyers, but these like very, very technical, really athletic guys. Because Punk, while he is still athletic and the things that he's doing at his age are really impressive to me, I think it'll benefit him more if he has someone that can kind of do the legwork, in my opinion. But I'm really excited to see where they go from here. We have a few minutes left in this pod, Harry, and I didn't watch the first show back from Double or Nothing, but as we did mention very briefly, Punk did get injured. Was there anything from the show that you wanted to touch on beforehand, or do you want to jump right into Punk's injury?
I guess I'll quickly say, I thoroughly enjoyed the pay-per-view. Like I said, I think there were some negatives. I think it was a bit too long, and it didn't feel like an AEW pay-per-view where every match means something. But I think at the end of the day, there were a lot of great matches, like the Anarchy match, and the Punk match, and the Six Man, and the tag team match. There were so many great matches. So most of it I really loved, and I'm really excited for what's to come. So I don't know if you want to quickly share your ending thoughts before we continue into the injury, which I can
Yeah,
quickly sum up.
sure. I mean, I felt like, given what I was expecting, even with the show being very long, like honestly, like I enjoyed the final couple of matches on the card. I did, but I was so exhausted by the final, like with 1 hour left to go in the show, and that was with me breaking up the pay per view into 3 days. Like, it was just trying to I want to be able to enjoy these kind of events in as short a time frame as possible. Like, I'm assuming you watched the show in totality on Sunday, right?
I actually didn't. I couldn't. I didn't even do it. I did Sunday and Saturday,
You Sunday. Okay, well then there you go. There you go. See,
or Sunday and Monday.
so
Sorry,
Sunday and
sorry.
Monday. Yeah, yeah. You did over 2 days. Like I watched the NBA finals, and then I ended up trying to watch the show throughout the week. And with all that being said, I still felt like the majority of the matches were good to great. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, like if I had to
Yeah.
give it a grade, like a letter grade, I'd probably give it an A minus or a very high B plus. And if the length wasn't as long, it'd probably be closer to an A. It was a very good show. I did enjoy it.
And I agree, and I'll quickly say I think I would give it an A nonetheless. And I'll make the point where it's like, yes, it was long, but it's not like WWE where they do a pay-per-view like every month. AEW does maybe 4 pay-per-views a year, so I
Yeah,
think
good
if
point.
they have enough, they have enough time where they can do things like this, and it's not overwhelming where it's, oh, we got another one in like a week or whatever. Like so, you know. But I guess that's about it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad we got to talk about it. So I guess if
Awesome.
you want, we can speak about Punk's
Yeah,
injury.
let's do it. We have like 2 or 3 minutes here. Obviously, the news that Harry shared with me, for those of you that don't know, Punk did get injured. Harry's going to share all the details. He's not vacating the title, but there's like an interim title. Do you want to go into a little further for the people listening,
Yeah,
Harry?
so it's interesting because he did fight the next Dynamite, and you could tell. He didn't. It's not like he tried the buckshot lariat like he did in the match, but even he got tagged in at one point, and he jumped over the rope, and it happened again, where his knee or I don't know if it's leg or something, it kind of buckled back, so he kind of fell a little bit, and that kind of looked weird. And he ended up coming out on Friday out of nowhere and on Rampage, and he said, "Listen, like." I'm in so much pain. It turns out that something's broken. I don't think he clarified what was broken. He was in tears. You could tell how sad he is that he has to take a break from wrestling, at least for now. He said that he told Tony, he was like, listen, I don't want to take time away from all these people that could be champions, so I'm okay to relinquish it, and we'll figure it out when we get back. And, Punk said that Tony Khan said it, listen, I believe in you, Punk, and I know you're going to come back from this better and stronger, and, we're going to give you the time to do that. So, Punk was going to face New Japan's Tanahashi at the New Japan Ring of Honor and AEW pay-per-view coming up in a few weeks. But instead, what they're going to end up doing is they're adding an interim title where it's interesting. There's going to be a battle royal on in the beginning of Dynamite on Wednesday, and thanks to the ranking system, Jon Moxley is actually the number one ranking. So the winner will face Jon Moxley at the end of the pay-per-view. At the end of the show, the Dynamite, that'll decide the interim title, and then he'll go on to face Tanahashi,
Oh,
which
that's cool.
I think is a good idea. One, they've been hinting at Jon Moxley against Tanahashi for like a year now, so it's kind of works out in a way that they can fight for the title. But also, I will say, I think it's a great idea to do it with Moxley. One, because when he was champion, he did it during the pandemic, so he never got to be a champion, with the crowd and have that help. So I think that's great. And I also think it's a fantastic idea to give the interim title to someone who's already been champion, so you don't waste giving a title to a new person just so they can lose it when Punk comes back. I think Moxley is the type of person, like, this will not make him look worse at all. Like, he'll carry it. Maybe for a couple months he'll do some awesome title defenses, and then when Punk comes, maybe they can do a Moxley against Punk match at the pay-per-view, which I assume Punk would win. So I think it's it's gonna be really fun, and it's gonna be interesting to kind of see what happens in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll be sure to try and stay tuned as much as I can, and obviously you'll fill me in whenever there's something of note that happens. Harry, always a pleasure. This was a great pod. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your take on Double or Nothing, and I'm looking forward to the next pod whenever it may be. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.